Players are crashing instances, duping items, getting hacked, and breaking the economy in Path of Exile 2. But GGG is watching. They're back from vacation, and the bans, they're a-coming. Hey folks, this is Riker. Today we've got a packed episode breaking down some huge developments in the world of Path of Exile 2. From the skyrocketing inflation caused by players stacking item rarity, to whispers of a hidden soft cap that might make this entire meta a trap. Could the community be chasing diminishing returns without even realizing it? We'll also dive into the Trial of Sekhmet, a piece of content that I've had a complicated relationship with. And then there's the unsettling wave of account burglary hitting the community. Why are older accounts and trade-heavy players being targeted? On top of all that, we'll also jump into Diablo updates, including the Darkening of Tristram event, a spicy Diablo 1 Game Pass rumor, and some major wins for Helldivers 2 and Balatro in the Game of the Year scene. Oh, and did someone say a Half-Life 3 teaser? Yeah, we'll get into that too. But before we jump into all that, we'll start with some other ARPG news from this video's sponsor, Torchlight Infinite. Torchlight Infinite is gearing up for its SS7 season named Arcana, which revolves around a gameplay mechanic inspired by tarot cards. You'll find tarot cards throughout Netherrealm stages, with each card triggering unique challenges. For example, the Sun card will make radiant energy sweep across the area. The Hermit card will make shadow assassins emerge that are only visible when you get close to them, or they get close to you. The Chariot card will make chariots rush in from all directions, and you're going to want to dodge those. Eventually, multiple tarot effects start to converge, increasing the difficulty, but also the reward. After you've completed a certain number of trials, you'll unlock the Tarot Secret Path board game mechanic, where you'll encounter treasure chests with varying rewards or traps. And you can strategically use Note of Arcana to either skip traps, upgrade treasure chest rewards, or generate high rarity treasure chests within range. There's also a new hero trait for Iris called the Vigilant Breeze. Its special ability is to merge with Spirit Magi to control their abilities dynamically. There's a whole lot of other updates as well, like legendary gear reworks, exclusive support skills, balance changes. There's even a new co-op challenge called City Defense, where you and your buddy team up to survive 15 waves of monsters while also cooperating to overcome mechanics. I'm really hyped to try that one out. So check out the new Torchlight Infinite season Arcana when it goes live at 6 PM PST on January 9th. In Path of Exile 2 news, as the community began to learn the merits of stacking item rarity in order to seriously up their loot, the market quickly spiraled out of control with hyperinflation of currency, effectively pricing out any newcomers who haven't already gone in on things. However, I've been seeing some people do some experimenting with item rarity, and I saw some preliminary reports that you get diminishing returns after about 100 item rarity on your gear. Now, I spoke a lot about Magic Find and item rarity in last week's video. If it is true that there is no real point in stacking like 300 item rarity, that you sort of have this soft cap at around 100, then that definitely makes the situation less severe. Having to solve for item rarity as another part of your itemization puzzle is better than feeling like you must stack as much as possible everywhere. So, for instance, you need to cap your resistances, you want to soft cap item rarity. I'm still not a fan of Magic Find on gear in general, but if it's going to be in the game, I do prefer having this soft cap to no cap. Meanwhile, some people have allegedly been abusing of instance crashing in order to effectively save scum their crafting attempts. Don't do this, folks. GGG is smart. They do not mess around. They will permaban you for this, and they have done so in the past, and they will catch you. And speaking of, there was a duping exploit that the devs shut down this week with a hotfix, basically like as soon as they came back from vacation. You can no longer now use the instance manager to create multiple instances of the Trial of Sekhmet, which I don't want to explain how to dupe, but yeah, don't do it. And speaking of the Trial of Sekhmet, I believe I said in my original campaign playthrough that I did not enjoy the Trial of Sekhmet. I didn't like the honor mechanic, and I hadn't touched the trial since then, but this week I ran it a few times, and I actually found that when I was not running it to get my ascendancy points, but just running it for relics to improve my ability to run the Trial of Sekhmet, I actually enjoyed the trial. It felt like a roguelite, and I do enjoy roguelites, but then something weird happened. After a few runs, I said, okay, I farmed up the gear that I want, now I'm going to do my real run to get my ascendancy points. And then I hated it again. When I was on my run, going for my Ascendancy, the experience just changed for me completely. At the end, I beat the boss with just a little bit of honor remaining, so skin in my teeth. And it seems like that's a moment that should have felt like a big celebratory win for me, but I just felt over it. And I really don't quite understand why I felt that way. Why did I enjoy it while I was farming, but why did I not enjoy it when I was going for my Ascendancy points? And I'm not proposing or suggesting any changes here based on this. I'm just expressing my feelings as a player while experiencing the content. Because I can't control my feelings. I can rationalize, I can understand, I can tell myself, you know, well, when you're running it, don't stress over it. But ultimately, I cannot control my feelings. Still though, my overall takeaway from the trial was more positive than in the past. I thought I would never enjoy it, so the fact that I did enjoy farming, that was nice. Oh, something I've noticed in tower maps, especially tower maps, my minions keep getting stuck in doorways. One of the things I loved about PoE, early levels, I think like level 1, I realized I can do this, that I had the ability to control my minions where they move. I loved that. Like right away I was like, geez, this is all I ever wanted in Diablo 4, my ability to move minions. But it turns out you can only move melee minions. Like what you can do is target, you point at something and your minions will target that. So if they're melee, they have to walk over to target it, but ranged minions just keep standing where they are. If we can have some ability to move our ranged minions, that would be fantastic. Also not a big fan of them just dying and hitting the respawn timer if I move too far away from them. It's good that I have 0 movement speed on my build, so it doesn't happen, I guess, all that much. But I could imagine if I did have 20% move speed, it would be happening even more. But back to the news, we've also been hearing multiple reports of players logging in and seeing their most valuable currency and items just cleaned out from their stash. Basically, these players were hacked and robbed. And there's been a lot of reports. People are trying to piece together what's going on, how is this happening. It seems a lot of the reports are coming from people who have engaged with the trade system recently. This is likely how hackers knew who to target. I don't think they're just going in blind to any account. I think if you list expensive stuff on a trade site, people can somehow see your account and they'll know, okay, I'm going to target this guy. Or if you bought something spending a lot of currency, they'll know, okay, that's someone with a lot of currency, let's target them. Speculation here. There does seem to be consistency in the people who were affected also having older accounts though, back in the days when you had to log in through a standalone client. So I don't know the tech explanation behind things, but there's probably something going on there. As a precautionary measure, changing your passwords is a good idea. Just as a general rule, it's good hygiene to change your passwords every 6 to 12 months. That said, I did see some people reporting that they did change their passwords and they still got hacked. So that's a little spooky. That's something that's a lot harder to explain. You know, if it was an old password leak, it's not so bad. We know that, you know, GGG has been compromised in the past. But if it's not that, if there's something more malware related going on, or again, I don't know the terminology here, but just be safe out there. Meanwhile, though, the game continues to have a healthy population. It's still peaking at a daily concurrent Steam player count of 320,000. And I think what GGG has here is a really solid foundation. Could there be some tweaks, some balance changes? Sure. We've spoken about some stuff over the past few weeks, but really there's no criticism that is stemming from something unfixable or a problem so deep-rooted that it would take them like a year to solve. The game's almost there, and by launch, I'm confident that it's gonna be there. And we'll finish up the PoE news with a PSA. Stash tabs are currently on sale. PoE 2 tabs are backwards compatible with PoE 1 tabs as well, so if you buy them in PoE 2, you'll have them in PoE 1. And if you ever want to be serious about trading, you need to get premium stash tabs. They're also just a great quality of life thing if you're not a trade player. And I would also consider the currency tab to be mandatory for all players. That's your first priority stash tab to buy, in my opinion. Then beyond that, there's nothing that's really mandatory right now. The gem tab, very useful. The quad tab, very useful. Once they eventually add the map tab, that will be extremely useful for endgame farming. Alright, onto some Diablo news. The Darkening of Tristram event is ongoing in Diablo 3, which really makes me wishful to see something like this in Diablo 4. I've said it before, but having some kind of roguelite Diablo 1 dungeon in D4 would be awesome. And for those who don't know, the Darkening of Tristram is a Diablo 1 themed dungeon event in D3, in which you get these retro graphics filter on top of like a 14 level dungeon, or I'm sorry, I forget exactly the number of levels in Diablo 1. But you're going down, you run into the butcher, right? It's not quite playing Diablo 1 and Diablo 3, but it is a Diablo 1 flavored themed dungeon. You can't run, you could only walk, so it feels more Diablo 1. We have Diablo 1 loot drops like the Godly Plate of the Whale. It's just a nice throwback event, and it runs until January 31st. And speaking of Diablo 1, there's a rumor that the game is coming to PC Game Pass this January. And this rumor comes from YouTuber Extra S1S, who claims UFC 5 is also coming to Game Pass this January via EA Play. Now, allegedly, he has given some correct leaks about Game Pass in the past. Still, though, I would take this with a grain of salt. Now, we did see just a few weeks ago, Blizzard remove Diablo 1 from GOG, where they used to make it available for sale, so it would make sense to delist the game from competing distributors if you were planning to make it available via your own distribution methods like Game Pass. But it could also be that this guy is just making this up because he saw that happen and he's like, well, I'm going to predict now that it's coming to Game Pass. Moving on to other news, in some yet more Game of the Year roundup news, PC Gamer gave Best Multiplayer Game of the Year to Helldivers 2, which, hell yeah, fully agree there. I had so much fun playing Helldivers 2 with my friends. And they gave their overall Game of the Year award to Balatro. Not to take anything away from Balatro, but wow, that's a lot of competition that it beat out. Now, I hear it's a great game. I hear it's described as a card game for people who don't like card games. And you folks told me that I don't have to be into poker to get into Balatro, so this one is definitely on my list of games to try. Y'all convinced me, okay? Then in some Palworld news, the Pokemon with Guns game is seeing... Sorry. Let's not get Palworld in any more trouble with Nintendo. The totally not Pokemon with Guns game... There. Is seeing a resurgence in players after its latest update, Faebreak. Palworld released early last year, making a huge splash in the gaming world. It reached 2.1 million peak concurrent players. And then it settled down to a still very respectable 25,000 daily peak concurrents as of a couple months ago, which is good numbers for a game that is not a live service. But with Faebreak, the game hit 200,000 daily concurrents. These are numbers that it hasn't seen since March of last year. The update adds a new island that is like 6 times the size of the previous island that was added, 23 new pals, new buildings, gear, abilities, boss fights, and more. You can also now share resources between your bases, huge quality of life, and pals also will no longer just wait around on cooldown, they'll constantly attack between their cooldowns. I think Palworld dropped off so steeply not because people lost interest in the game, but I imagine a lot of people are just waiting for either a significant update like Faebreak or just for the full release out of early access. Then last week we spoke about the success of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Well, as a follow-up, it's been so successful that, according to Windows Central journalist Jez Corden, Disney picked up the phone and wants more Indiana Jones. He said this on an episode of the Xbox 2 podcast. Do check that out. Then in some Half-Life news, the voice actor behind G-Man, Michael Shapiro, tweeted out a 28-second audio clip with a somewhat cryptic Happy New Year message in the persona of G-Man, along with the hashtags Valve, Half-Life, G-Man, and 2025. Now, is he really teasing Half-Life 3, or is he so cruel as to get all our hopes up for nothing? Now, there are allegedly rumors of friends and family playtests for Half-Life 3 currently ongoing, but again, grain of salt there. It is worth noting that Shapiro seemingly hasn't posted on Twitter since December 2020, in which he promoted Half-Life Alyx, so it's not like he's just tweeting all the time, guys. Then lastly, remember Tango Gameworks, the Japanese studio that made Hi-Fi Rush? They were founded in 2010, acquired by ZeniMax in the same year. Then ZeniMax was acquired by Microsoft in March 2021, making Tango Microsoft's first Japanese studio. Tango developed The Evil Within 1 and 2, Ghostwire Tokyo, and then in 2023, the rhythm game Hi-Fi Rush that was critically acclaimed but only reached 3 million players. And then in 2024, Microsoft shut down the studio. Now, talks began with South Korean publisher Crackdown a couple months later, and now Tango has been reborn under Crackdown's umbrella. Good for them. It was a real shame to see them being shut down after releasing a good and successful game. And that's going to wrap up this video, but do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed the full Magic Find dilemma in ARPGs. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.